I was always impressed with Roland. If I could just summarize his life, and we should all have this as a goal. His life was a success, and he was productive. And I think that's an important aspect of Roland. Roland was born in Ohio on March 2nd, 1917, so that makes him 101 years old. His family moved to California in 1920, and they lived through a tumultuous time in history. Matt, what was that time?
The Great Depression.
The Great Depression. And we're not talking about earthquakes here, financial earthquakes. Roland told me this about the Depression. He was in school in Herman in Highland Park area, and he said one day he looked down at the boys sitting in his classroom. 1 in 4 only had shoes. The rest of the boys were barefooted. Think about that. This is in LA. So the Great Depression was a hard time. His first job was selling Saturday Evening Posts and Ladies' Home Journal. He was a teenager, and he made a whopping 2 cents on each magazine. Think about that. He was happy with that. He then joined the Boy Scouts and stayed for decades and became ultimately a community scoutmaster. I think it was the uniform. He graduated from Franklin High School in 1935. We have a couple of other Franklin graduates in this very room.
Raise your hand, raise your hand. All the Franklin people.
So I used to always, when I'd sit in the living room with Roland, he always had the Franklin Almanac, which is the yearbook, you know, sitting on his, you know, but it said 1935 on it. So everything was black and white or sepia tone in it, you know. I was always fascinated with that. He told me this story many times, which I love. He said after he graduated from Franklin, he was in enthrallment that he was going to have some time off. Graduated on Friday. Monday morning at 6 o'clock, his dad woke him up and said, "We're going to work." And his father built houses, so it was hard work, but Roland adapted to it and liked it. That same year, he enrolled in Los Angeles City College and took an advertising lettering course. Any of you who have gotten one of his letters know that that course really paid off big time, because his lettering was machine-like. It was impeccable. And he became, at Los Angeles City College in 1935, the official poster painter. But it went beyond that. He wasn't just there. He also worked at Boys Market, which is a market my parents shopped at, and he was also the poster painter there. I can remember marveling at a sign that said watermelon, 3 cents a pound. And I loved the big 3, you know, dripping with watermelon juice. That was Roland. I didn't know it then. Roland met his wife, Anne, when they were both teenagers, while he was going to Franklin High School. And we all know now that Roland was very smart because he married Anne in 1939. That year, his father gave him a little plot of land in Highland Park and helped Roland build their first house. Shortly after that, another tumultuous event happened in the world, World War II. Roland had a deferment because he was a tool and die designer, which is appropriate and meaningful to me because my father was a tool and die maker who also got a deferment. After the war, around 1951, Roland took an exam for the State of California Department of Architecture and passed. Prior to that, he took meaningful courses at USC to inform himself about architecture. He remained with the state starting as a draftsman. He remained at the state, worked there 26 years, retiring as the chief of architecture with 200 men under him. That's pretty impressive, I think. While he was at the state, he was involved in building 18 state universities and colleges, of which I worked at one, so we had this connection. He knew everybody in the administration at Cal State Los Angeles where I worked, and I knew none of them. So I'd always ask him, you know, about what's going on. After a year or two of retirement, Roland decided he needed to go back to work again, and he was hired by an architectural engineering firm called Holmes and Narver that worked only on top secret government projects, big time stuff. And I remember Roland was so good at not telling you anything, you know, or if I was working there, you know, our top secrets would be gone. But the most important thing that Anne and Roland accomplished in their lifetime was that they had 3 children, who are, 2 of them are here today. The 3 children produced 8 grandchildren, who produced 11 great-great-grandchildren, and 4 great-great-great, with 1 on the way. And that's his, you know, his biography, but there's a more personal side to Roland, and I'd like to share a few things there too. One of his passions was boating. Did anybody have the pleasure of boating with Roland? What I liked about boating with Roland, boating consisted of lunching and martinis while sitting on the boat. The boat didn't actually go anywhere. You went to the boat. So that was Roland's boating concept. He started in Newport with a Cal 20 sailboat. I don't know if you know what a Cal 20 sailboat looks like. Imagine a Purex bottle cut in half with a sail in the middle of it. That was a Cal 20. Later, when they were living in Sacramento, he changed course and he bought himself a Trojan power cruiser. Very nice. And I remember that boat well too. And then finally, the ultimate, when he moved back to Southern California, he bought a Grand Banks. A Grand Banks is suitable for going through 20-foot breakers in the East Coast. His Grand Banks went to San Diego, where it was permanently moored, and they used it as an apartment in San Diego. And Nadine and I used it a couple times ourselves. It was very nice. Because of Roland's background in carpentry and architecture, he was a chronic remodeler. Every house he ever lived in, he either built or remodeled all the time. He remodeled the house in Highland Park. He remodeled the house in Newport. He built the half of the house in Corona del Mar, and in Oregon on the river. He completely remodeled the house up there. I remember he's, I don't know, 80 years old, you know, and we're up there visiting him. I hear hammering and pounding and sawing, you know, and I'm laying in bed. And I go, oh no. Finally, and most importantly, Roland deeply loved his family and acted as a role model for almost everybody that's here today, and for that we are thankful. And we will remember him forever.
Amen.